Welcome back. This is Matt from Jaggers Brewing Co. Today's project is going to be Kentucky Common. You'll have to excuse all the moisture on the glass. There is a huge difference in temperature between inside and outside this time of year. We're right in the middle of June, so it's already really hot out here. Cicadas are going. We've got mosquitoes in full swing. So let's try to get this video knocked out before we have any interruptions through the neighborhood, loud trucks, trash trucks, construction, and the highway back there. So this is this year's version of my Kentucky Common. I've been competing with this for the last couple years under the name Commonwealth as a tribute to Kentucky Common. Quick backstory on this beer. So back when I was starting my homebrew career, getting started and everything, I was a little bored and I was a little bearded. That's a shout out to Bearded and Bored's YouTube channel. But when I got started, I was still doing a lot of extract kits and stuff like that, so I was trying to venture out and do some different things. Stumbled upon his channel, and he had a Kentucky Common. It looked like it was pretty interesting. The story behind the style is definitely unique and pretty awesome in and itself. So I was really happy to try to take a stab at it. When I tried to follow his recipe, I had to do a lot of substitutions because I couldn't find exactly everything that he was talking about in his recipe. Some of those substitutions were definitely for the worst. That beer came out very grainy tasting. It was just awful. So ever since then, at least once a year, I try to brew a Kentucky Common, constantly trying to improve my recipe. I feel like I've gotten pretty close. On the competition side, I've been scoring kind of mid-30s thereabouts with this beer. This is the first time that I've done temperature control on it, so it's making its way through the local state circuit here that I'm involved in, the Lone Star circuit. I've got it in a few competitions. I got one score sheet back so far on it. Wasn't really happy with it. We'll try to do a recap at the end of the year on all my competition scores and stuff, and try to break down these beers, their faults and stuff. So one of the biggest complaints was that I had gotten last year was it was too estery, you know, basically kind of controlled my fermentation temperature. So that was the biggest change that I did to it, other than kegging and filling from the keg into the bottle. So I've kind of got to see how I'm doing with that and see if that's affecting any of the score sheets. So let's get into it. This is one of my favorite beers that I've brewed this year. I think the quality's really come up in it. I also feel like that this is just my year of brewing. Like I'm really focusing and honing in on a lot of the styles and the techniques and kind of clamping down on all those and really kicking out some awesome beers this year. Cheers. So on the nose, get that sweet corn-like aroma. The hops on it is very subdued. It's there. We're picking up those cluster type hops for sure. I use cluster hops in it, and we'll get into the recipe in just a moment. I feel like the mouthfeel is a little bit towards the lower end of the medium spectrum. You'll have to excuse all the sweat that's coming off of me. It's like 10:30 and it feels like it's like 95 degrees already, which this beer on a day like today, very good beer. Essentially more or less like a dark cream ale, right? So I kind of feel like it's one of those darker type lawnmower beers. far as the taste goes, I pick up on that corn sweetness, and it just naturally just rolls into a nice malt background. I'm picking up a little bit of those complexities from the dark grains, but it's just a nice little touch. I really feel like I could just down this whole thing right now. This is like I said, this is right here. This is what it's all about. This is one of the best cream ales that I've done. Now, I've experimented throwing rye in it, throwing oats and all that kind of stuff, but this is it right here. We'll have to see how the rest of those score sheets come in. But so for the recipe, what we've done here is, and I've played around with all this just off and on, looking at other people's stuff. So if you look at the BJC style guidelines, going back, and it pretty much just spells it out, right? So we have to use our 6-row barley. I've got mine right at 61.9%, 62%. Flaked corn coming in right at 33.3%. Then I just did just a touch of some caramel 60 and some black patent, both at 2.4%. We mashed in at 165 degrees Fahrenheit for 60 minutes. And then we moved in to our boil additions. We have a train coming. Once this train passes, we will get past those boil additions. I'll be right back. All right, we're back from that train break. Thank God that thing's over. While I was waiting for that train to go by, it is 88 degrees outside right now, and the heat index is 103. So welcome to Texas preheat, y'all. So our boil additions were 18.5 IBUs of Cluster at 60 minutes. Then we did our Whirlfloc Tablet at the 15-minute mark. Now this is kind of where the things have kind of shifted. I used to do Cluster towards the end. I used to do another dose of Cluster, or a heavier dose of Cluster at the 60-minute mark. But I did 3.1 IBUs worth of Cluster at the 15-minute mark as well when I threw in that Whirlfloc Tablet. Then we did our normal Yeast Nutrient at the 10-minute mark. So the fermentation on this, I've pretty much have always used the cream ale yeast blend, WLP 080 on it. I just felt like that was a yeast that, one, was highly recommended, and two, just seemed to really match the style, right? The profile of it. Man, these cicadas are loud today. So with the yeast profile there, I mean, I'm not really picking up anything. It's one of those things, it's a hybrid between like lager and Saccharomyces. So I'm not picking up on anything on this thing as far as the yeast profile. I just feel like it's mostly just malt driven with it. I think this thing could probably stand to use a little bit more carbonation as far as that goes. I mean, we definitely have, I would say, like low effervescence in this thing right now. I still see some bubbles. It's kind of dark, leaning as far as the beer goes, so it's a little harder to see. There's a bunch of tiny little bubbles there. As you've seen, the head started off fairly decently. We've got a small ring there. Now into the fermentation though of it. So I pitched my yeast at 58 degrees Fahrenheit. I let it free rise to 62 degrees. Once the fermentation kicked off right at about 62 degrees, I let it free rise again to 63. I held it at 63 for 3 days. After that, I raised 1 degree for free rise until we hit 70 degrees, at which point we held 70 degrees for a week and then we kegged it. This thing here, it's nice, smooth on the palate. I mean, this is an easy drinking beer. I really just absolutely love this thing. I cannot talk enough about it. I'm hoping that some of the score sheets that I get back here pretty soon are gonna be able to help me advance, of course, through the Master Homebrew program. If you don't know about that, I'll put a link in the description there. Also, the link to my recipe will be in the description as well as a few other ones that I've talked about, such as Bearded and Bored and all that. So at the end of the day, as of right now, I would not change one thing about this recipe. If I start to get a bunch of score sheets that come back all like in that you know, 20s, sub 30s area on this particular brew, I guess this is just going to be one of those ones that I'm going to brew it the way that I want to brew it and keep it at the house, and I will figure something else out for the competition level aspect there. I mean, maybe we could bump up a little bit more on the mouthfeel, make it a little bit more creamier, but I think with some of those descriptions, such as like cream ale and all that, those don't really match kind of like what your mind would think there. So if you haven't brewed a Kentucky Common, I suggest that you try one. This is actually my second take on this video now. I've seen that Mean Brews put out a video recently on a Kentucky Common. So go check out that video. I have yet to see it, so I kind of want to look at it and compare it to my very own recipe, see kind of where I'm falling in line there. But as always, thank you guys so much for coming and checking out my silly shenanigans, putting up with my rambling, and looking at my beers. Cheers to each and every single one of you. Adios.